Good evening. This is Drew from Friday Night Dark. And this is one of those times when I'm actually putting something a little extra in the things that I actually share. What I mean by that is that although some things may not necessarily be completely paranormal or unexplainable, they do actually contribute to the very subject that I like to endure. Let me explain. The other day, I actually happened to find myself looking at things that were just about some graves and some cemeteries and whatnot. I was kind of looking at, the likelihood of hauntings. Well, this is where it got strange for me because then this particular article popped up about serial killers. Yeah, I know where you probably see where this is going to go, but it's important that I share this because, well, serial killers in general, people who succumb to violent impulses and then make the very thing that caused the hauntings that I know so well, in some cases, of course, I tend to think about what some of these people might be like. And one of the concepts and one of the, I guess, hypotheses that was suggested is that perhaps it was environment only. And in one instance, there was someone who actually determined that the issue was someone who had the brain design for an actual, what do they call it? They're predisposed to being a serial killer because their physical design of their brain allows them to do so. The person I'm talking about is a neuroscientist by the name of Jin Fallon. And why that's important is because he actually does talk about some of the things that he was studying. And he apparently was one of those people that defense lawyers were sending him brain scans of convicted murderers. And after a while, he started to see that there was an actual pattern. What he noticed that these folks, the serial killers and psychopathic killers of all types that were having in common was a loss of function of what they call the orbital cortex, and it's above the eyes. And this particular area is a circuit that codes for ethics, morality, conscience, and apparently, when that's gone or it doesn't develop, not only does a person have no sense of morality, but also has little control over their impulses. So it goes to one's mind that perhaps, there is a physical defect that happens here. I always jokingly tell people that my mom should have bought Apple Care. And I know maybe that sounds like an indirect plug to the actual company itself. I'm not trying to shine them in the light of this particular type of thinking, but what I am doing is that if it was a defect, it's a hardware defect, if you will, and therefore replacement needs to happen. With a human life, that's kind of impossible. But the one thing I would say here is that maybe perhaps there should have been, some way to fix something like this. Is there any way to scan and perhaps repair such a thing? But that would be a very traumatic operation in itself. But one thing that he did conclude is all the folks that had this predisposition because of that particular brain defect didn't necessarily equate that they were going to automatically fall into this group of a psychopathic or serial type killer. Why is that? Because his own brain scan actually showed the same predispositions. So, in essence, although someone may not necessarily fall into the category of being a natural born killer or potential killer, the potential to be one is there if, in fact, environmental factors were not there to shelter and perhaps guide in the proper way that's needed. It has been proven time and again the brain does rewire itself if certain things become deficient. And therefore, if something like that does take place, it only means that someone who is in the midst of trying to, I guess, determine right and wrong at an early age, and they have this type of a defect, it's quite possible that the brain actually will allow to be rewired, for a lack of a better term, and therefore would mean that they could still live a normal life. and possibly be in some kind of specialized field they could contribute to society in a positive means, as given by the person who did the very study on serial killers. So I guess in some ways it might seem like a little bit of a joke, but at the same time it's not. It's not just a joke. It's also something that's very serious in nature. It does suggest that people have a predisposition for this. And it also suggests that it's not just something where if you have the predisposition, but if you're in the right environment, it's more than likely going to take place that you will become one of these infamous killers that you might read about. To give examples of what I'm talking about here, I'm talking people like Ted Bundy or I can't say this name, Louis Garavito. And for that matter, I might throw in there a few others like the Night Stalker, which was Richard Ramirez. I know in some cases people might disagree with the statement, but because I know he had the physical scans to prove it, and he had himself as a basis of comparison, it can be very easily determined by the circumstances given that perhaps there is a relationship between these types of brain defects, if you will, and someone's environment and how they are raised. I think this probably does make me wonder if and only if we really need to take a good look at both the physical and the emotional aspects of someone's life. Would we really have the people that we would have, or would there be some other trigger that might take place? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that one. But for me, I'm quite convinced that perhaps there is a relationship, and I can't really say anything more. Well, hopefully, somewhere in there you might find yourself talking about this particular subject, and if you do, let me know. Where else? Friday Night Dark at nighttracks.com. Hey, this is Drew, and I bid you good night.